Now, picking up where we left off at, we would take 9 times 3, which is 27. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 2 is 29. 9 times 4 is 36, plus 2 is 38. Now, we count how many numbers we had behind the decimal from the original problem. And we had 3 digits behind the decimal, so it'd be 3.897. Now we go to the next problem. We have a negative 2/3 times a negative 1/2. We know a negative times a negative is positive, so we know our answer is going to be positive. So we could do cross simplification. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 2 once. So we have 1/3 times 1/2. No, I'm sorry, 1/3 times 1 over 1. So it'd be 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 1 is 3. So your answer is 1/3. Now we go to the next page. Now we have the order of operations, which is section D, with integers. Now we want to review. First things first, I cannot write in these boxes because of the formatting, but we know number 1 is parentheses. So we have parentheses. Number 2 is exponents. Now number 3, again, like I have said before, with number 3, this is where most people get confused. It's multiply or divide, whichever one comes first from left to right. So it's multiply or divide. And then last but not least is add or subtract. Whichever one comes first from left to right. So that was a quick review of the order of operations. Now we want to do some examples. We look here first, we look for our parentheses. We do have a set of parentheses, but there's nothing we could do inside the parentheses. So now we look for exponents. We have our first exponent here. So as you know, the only thing that's taken to this second power is the 2, not the negative sign. So you'll bring the negative sign down, and 2 to the second power is 4. Plus, in parentheses, negative 4 squared plus 1 to the 5th. Now we go to the next exponent. We have negative 4 in parentheses squared. That means everything inside this parenthesis is to the second power. So this would be negative 4 plus negative 4 in parentheses squared is negative 4 times negative 4, which is a positive 16, plus 1 to the 5th power. So now we do the next exponent. So we have negative 4 plus 16 plus 1 to the 5th power is just 1 times itself 5 times, which would give us 1. Now we have a negative 4 plus 16 plus 1. So we go from left to right because it's all addition. Now, because these have opposite signs, we will look at it as 16 minus 4, which we know is 12. Now, since 16 is the larger number and is positive, we will leave 12 positive and bring down this plus 1. And 12 plus 1 is 13. Now we go here to number 2. We start with our parentheses. We add 2 minus 9, and we know in our head we will be doing 9 minus 2, which is 7. But since the 9 has a minus sign in front of it, it'll be negative 7 for that answer. So we add 2 times negative 7 plus a negative 12 minus 3. Now, we cannot do anything else with our parentheses because they're completed. We don't have any exponents, so now we look for division or multiplication, and we do have multiplication here. So we have 2 times a negative 7, and since we have one negative sign here, we know our answer will be negative, and 2 times 7 is 14. So it'll be a negative 14 plus a negative 12 minus 3. Now, negative 14 plus a negative 12, they have the same sign, so you add them together and carry the sign. So it'll be a negative 26 minus 3. These two have the same sign, so you would add them together and carry the sign, so it'll be a negative 29. Now, we go to the next page. Now we have an even longer problem here. But first we look for our parentheses. We notice we cannot do anything inside of any of these parentheses. Next we look for exponents. We don't see any exponents. Okay, so now we look for multiplication or division. Now, when we look here, we have multiplication here. We have -5 times a +2. Now, this negative, we know we have one negative here, so we know our answer be negative. So it'd be -4 minus, it'll be -10 plus 3 times -1 times -2 minus a -8. Now we go to our next multiplication problem, which is here. We have a +3 times a -1 times a -2. Now we have two negative signs, so we know this is going to be positive. So we had -4 minus a -10, and then 3 times 1 is 3 times 2 is 6. So it'd be +6 minus a -8. Now, we look here, we have subtraction, addition, and subtraction. So we go from left to right. So this will be -4 minus a -10 will give us a +10, +6, and minus a -8 will give us +8. So now we have -4 plus 10. We know we will look at this as 10 minus 4, which is 6. And since 10 is positive, this 6 will remain positive. +6 plus 8. 6 plus 6 we know is 12, plus 8 gives us 20. Now we go here to our next problem. We have a division problem here. It looks like a fraction, which it is, but it is also division. So we know we would do the top first and then the bottom first, the bottom second. So we'll do the numerator, then the denominator. So we look here, we have a parenthesis. We would do that first. So we have 4 minus 7 in our parenthesis. 4 minus 7, we know we would look at that as 7 minus 4, which would be 3, but since the 7 is negative and it's the larger number, it'll be -3, all over 2 cubed minus 3 squared. Now in our numerator, we have subtraction and multiplication, so we will multiply. So we will have 4 minus 7 times a -3. We know that would give us a -21, all over 2 cubed minus 3 squared. Now we have 4 minus a -21, which will give us 4 plus 21, all over 2 cubed minus 3 squared. And 4 plus 21, we know is 25, all over 2 cubed minus 3 squared. Now we look at our denominator. Our numerator would still be 25, but our denominator here, we add 2 to the third power. We have exponents and subtraction. We know we would do the exponents first. 2 to the third power is 8 minus 3 squared. So we add 25 over 8 minus 3 squared is 9. Now 8 minus 9, we add 25 over. We can go off to the side here, or up here, and we can read this as 9 minus 8, which is 1. But since the negative sign is in front of 9, which is the larger number, we will write -1. So 25 divided by -1, we know that when you have one negative sign in division, we know our answer be negative, so it'd be a -25. Now, we go to the next two problems. Again, we do this numerator first. We do the parentheses, so we add -4, and we know 6 minus 8. We'll read this as 8 minus 6, which is 2. But since the 8 has the negative sign in front of it, it'll be -2. And we have that squared, all over 2 minus a -3 times 2. Now this equals, we cannot do anything with this parenthesis, but this parenthesis is squared. So we have parenthesis -2 squared, which would be parenthesis -2 times parenthesis -2, which will give us +4. So we have -4 times +4, all over 2 minus a -3 times 2. Now, in our numerator, we have -4 times +4, which we know would be a -16. And we had 2 minus a -3 times 2. Now we go to our denominator. Our denominator, we have subtraction and multiplication. So we know we'll do the multiplication because we cannot do anything inside these parentheses. So -3 times a +2, we know would give us a -6. And we know 2 minus a -6 will give us 2 plus 6. So we have -16 all over 8. So we know a negative divided by a positive, we know would give us a negative. 16 divided by 8 is 2. So it'll be -2. Now we go here. We have a -4 bracket, -6 plus 5 parenthesis, -3 plus 5, and then -7 on the outside. So we know the first thing we would do is go inside this bracket and do this parenthesis. So this -3 plus 5 is the same as 5 minus 3, which is 2. And since 5 is the larger number and is positive, your answer will remain positive. So we will have -4 bracket -6 plus 5. In parentheses, we have 2, and then bracket -7. And we still have to work inside this bracket because we're not done with it yet. So we have addition and multiplication. We know we will multiply. 5 times 2 is 10. So we have -4 bracket -6 plus 10 bracket -7. -6 plus 10, we'll read that as 10 minus 6, which is 4. And since 10 is the larger number and positive, our answer would be positive. So we have -4 bracket 4 minus 7. We're done inside this bracket. So now we have multiplication and subtraction. We will do the multiplication first. So we have -4 times 4. We have one negative sign, so we know our answer will be negative. This will be -16 minus 7. These two values have the same sign, so you will add them together and carry the sign, which will give you a -23. Now, we go on to the next page. It says a little bit of algebra. When you are asked to evaluate an algebraic expression, you need to substitute the given numbers for the variables, letters in the expression, and then simplify. Here are a few helpful hints. When you substitute a negative number or fraction into an expression, put it in parentheses to avoid later errors. Write out the entire expression with the numbers plugged in before you start to do any calculations. Don't forget to apply the order of operations when simplifying the resulting expression. Okay, now we look here. We have x squared plus y, for x is -5 and y is -4. So we're being asked to substitute in -5 wherever x appears and -4 wherever y appears. So we have our x squared, so we'll put in -5 for x in parentheses squared, plus we'll put in -4 for y. So now we have substituted. Now we do it like a regular problem. We look and see if we could do anything inside the parentheses. We cannot. So we look at our exponent here. So we have -5 in parentheses squared. That's the same thing as -5 times -5, which is 25. So this would be 25 plus a -4. Now you notice these two are adding together, but they have different signs. So what you would do is just do regular subtraction. We would do 25 minus 4, which is 21. And since 25 is positive, here we will leave it as a positive 21. Now we go to the next problem. We have 4 times 4ab minus a minus 2b squared. Now we are to substitute -1 for a and +3 for b. So we will go through. We have 4, then parentheses -1, and b would be 3, minus a would be a -1, minus 2 times b is 3, and that's squared. Now, if you notice, when I substitute in any value, I put all of the values in parentheses, and I would suggest you do the same just to stay consistent. Now, we look inside these parentheses. There's nothing we can do inside the parentheses. So we look here at the exponent. We know 3 in parentheses squared will give us +9. So we'll write out everything else, and then 3 squared will become 9. Now we look here. The only operations we have left is multiplication and subtraction. So we know we will multiply.